I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and I am speaking today with Donny Jackson from the Apple TV Plus documentary series Dear, as part of our Meet the Experts panel for TV documentaries. First question I want to ask is, how do you go about finding the people to write these incredible letters to the trailblazers that you're covering?
Well, shout out to my story hunters and social media, because it's been a right crop of excited people who are really fans of and devotees of and admirers of some of the people that we're featuring. And so social media has been an amazing font of letter writers.
So do they just like put out a thing on social media saying, "Hey, are there," or look for fans of these people that have posted about them?
They're actually a lot more surgical than just going out to kind of a broad stroke of it, because you end up getting a lot of people who are fans, but haven't necessarily been inspired in a specific way, and are not necessarily taking that inspiration and paying it forward. So they're a little bit more meticulous in looking for stories that have been posted, looking for articles that have been written, looking for people who know other people who have been inspired. So it's a fairly sophisticated search.
Were there any subjects that you've had on the series so far that were reluctant to be a part of to participate in this?
No, I'll say that the people that we reach out to in the main are super excited about it, because it's a rare opportunity to talk about some of the things that they haven't talked about before, that have inspired them to do what they're doing. And I think people are excited in particular about having an opportunity to respond to letters that have been written to them. It's a different way of dealing with the typical fan-based culture, where these admirers are really talking about how they've been moved by a particular person, and then how they've tried to take that particular seed of inspiration and share it in some way with the world. And so it's actually been fairly easy to get people excited about it. Schedules being what they are, sometimes that's certainly an issue, and we want a diverse slate of people, not just people who are entertainers, not just people who are athletes. So it varies in terms of ethnicity and age and background. And so it's a lovely opportunity to reach out to people.
Was there a reaction of a celebrity reading one of the letters to them that really caught you off guard while they were reading it?
Absolutely. The one that comes to mind is Laird Hamilton. Laird Hamilton is an alpha male, the most famous big wave surfer on earth. And he's carved from granite. and so I was expecting, a jock. I was expecting a bro. And it was really moving to watch him be touched by these letters to tears, and it wasn't what I was expecting. It was just a really sweet opportunity to see a man allow himself to be vulnerable in a situation. And we're total strangers. We had never met before. And he hadn't met any of the crew. And so it was a level of trust that I was really touched by. And his ability to let himself really feel these letters was remarkable.
So I know there have been a lot of letters that have been read over this series, but what were some of the letters from this series that have stayed with you the most?
Wow, that's a great question. One of the letters that stayed with me the most was written to Billy Porter by a young man in Atlanta who grew up as a boy who identified as gay, but his family was a very rigid Christian family, and they weren't having it. They took him to deprogramming camp, of all things, if you can believe that still exists. But and to hear him share that story, but also be quite resilient in embracing both his faith and his sexuality, and being inspired by Billy Porter to do that very thing, was just amazing. That letter has stayed with me for a very long time.
I think one of the most powerful things of this season, of this second season, came just with time and the fact that this is one of the last things we saw André Leon Talley and other than just André being André, which is just fabulous on its own.
For sure.
The especially those letters, especially I can't remember the person's name who views themselves as like they treat everything about themselves like a piece of art.
Daniel, yeah.
Daniel, that was fantastic, and I'm sure this resonated with other episodes, but did after his passing, and that this was one of the last things, did seeing him in that in this piece, take on another level?
It took on another level for lots of people, because it was literally his last interview, and it took on a great weight and meaning for me, because we remained close after that interview. And the first time I talked to André, he was terrible to me. He didn't want to talk. He wasn't interested in answering my questions. And eventually we got to a place where we were quite close. And after our the final interview, he took me out to Soul Food in Harlem, and we just had a good old time, which was surreal, to be honest with you, to be hanging out with André Leon Talley. But yes, his passing, underscores the size, and I don't mean that in the physical sense, but just the larger than life of André and the impact that he had on the world. And I just last a couple weeks ago went to his a celebration of life service, and it was just amazing to see all the people who loved him and who were touched by him, and some of whom had seen the episode, and it was moving for them to have this kind of as a lasting document to reflect on his beautiful life.
So I know I asked you about the letters that caught you off guard, and made you feel very emotional. Were there any that just made you that stood out to you on a more humorous level, like this is just like so genuine and funny?
You got to go to Bowen Yang writing to Sandra Oh. He's a comic actor, comedian, and his letter, of course, was super funny, where he talks about her having the best faith in the world, and but even with Bowen, that level of humor, retained its humanity and its connection to Sandra, and she was both tickled by it. One of the things that you don't see in the episode, where she basically texted him to tell him how excited she was to discover that he was one of the letter writers. But we had a good time with that, because there was certainly much more that we could have covered with that. But it was great to have a humorous letter, and it was actually one of the things that I wanted to feature in season one that wasn't as much present in season two as wasn't as present in season one, was the humor of it, because that is a human connection, and that is a way of still admiring somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be as earnest and as beautifully serious as some of the other letters were. So we were tickled to have Bowen in our roster.
So this is a two-part question. Are you hoping to do a third season of the show? And if so, if you could have any anybody on, who would be some of the people that you would want to participate in a third season?
First of all, Charlie, the second question is super unfair, because I have to leave out like 7 billion people. But I would do this show forever. I'm absolutely hoping for a season 3, because I think it's one of those things that just has a thread of humanity through it that is relatable endlessly. You'll never run out of people who have inspired others, and you'll never run out of people who want to talk about that. So having said that, my wish list certainly starts with the Obamas. I would love to have both or either of them in the show. And so if they're watching this, shout out to the Obamas to join us for season 3, which we're hoping will happen.
Well, Donny, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
I'm looking forward to it also. Thanks, Charlie.
Take care.